New York has been a Democrat stronghold for decades, but in 2026, there is a very, very good chance that New York could turn red in 2026. In the 2022 gubernatorial race, it was the closest election in nearly 30 years. Now, granted, a Republican hasn't won in the state in almost 25 years now. But with shift in voter trends and really change in political landscape in the state, Republicans are eyeing a historic upset in the state. So today we are going to be diving into how Republicans can flip the state of New York in 2026. We'll be looking at the 2022 governor's race, the 24 presidential election, and House races from 2022. So let's jump into it. So in 2022, the Democrat, Kathy Hochul, how would you say this? She became the governor of New York after Andrew Cuomo resigned. And in 2022, she had to run for re-election. And she faced off against a popular Republican. He was a representative at the time, Lee Zeldin, and turned out to be an extremely tight race. Hochul only won re-election by about 6.5 percentage points. She won 53% of the vote. Zeldin won 46% of the vote. And like we said, the closest election since 1994. Now, granted, a Republican won in 1994, but it was the closest it had been. It was actually over Cuomo's father, Mario Cuomo. George Pataki won this election. Obviously, was a very popular governor. Last time he won was in 2002, won 16% of the vote. But after that, you had Eliot Spitzer won by like 40% of the vote. But even as recent as the 2018 election, Andrew Cuomo won almost 24% of the vote here. 24% of the vote. Fast forward 4 years, and you're telling me this margin has been cut by like 70%? And don't get me wrong, Zeldin outperformed expectations. He won key suburban areas like Nassau County. And we can see this right here. And actually what we will do, let's jump over to the presidential side, because that's how we can see Nassau County right here. Remember, Biden won this by 9 points. Hillary won this by 6 points. Biden by almost 10. Trump flipped it to by 4 points in 2024. Look at this down here. Now, he didn't, let's see, where do we have it? Zeldin won it by 10 points. 10 points. Remember, this was a D plus 10 in 2020, and Zeldin wins it by 10 points. Look at this. Suffolk County. Republicans barely won it. It was basically even. Zeldin wins it by 17 points. Brooklyn. Kathy Hochul underperformed Biden from 2020 by 13 points. Manhattan County, she underperformed by 10 points. In Queens, she almost underperformed by 20 percentage points. Erie County by 10 points. Across the state, you can see right here, the sheer shift. Do you even see a single, let's see if we can see that here. I don't think there's a single seat. No, there's not a single county that moved to the left. Everywhere in the state moved to the right towards Lee Zeldin. Every single place. But you ask, why? Why was it so close? Why? Hochul's approval ratings were extremely low, and voters have expressed extreme frustration over crime, the cost of living, and economic challenges in the state. Now, Zeldin's campaign focused on public safety, economic relief that really resonated with a lot of moderates and independents, and Republicans prove that they can compete in New York. They really prove they can compete in New York, and it is setting the stage for 2026. Ultimately, a lot of people believe that historically speaking, New York would be okay because a Republican president is in the White House. People are not so certain this time around. People with ultimately, Kathy Hochul and some, she still is a plus 50% approval rating at the end of the day. Some people say she's got a plus 60%. I don't know if I 100% believe that when you have polls that are saying that basically in almost every single poll, except for two, more than 50% of the constituents in these polls say they want a different candidate besides Kathy Hochul in a general election. Like they would choose a different candidate, which is just wild. And like we said, in 2024, Kamala Harris won the state by a pretty small margin as well. She only won it by 12 percentage points here, with 55% of the vote, defeating Donald Trump by roughly about 11% of the vote, and which was the smallest Democrat margin in a presidential election since 1988. 1988, when they only won it, Michael Dukakis only won by 4 percentage points. Ever since then, they have not had such a close election. Compare that to 2020, when Joe Biden won the state by 23 points. Trump gained ground in 2024, and this is my favorite thing to look at right here. Look at from past, this is from the move from 2020 to 2024. Every single county except Hamilton, Tompkins, and Yates County moved to the right. You've seen Queens move 20 points to the right. New York, 10 points to the right. Kings, 11 points. Richmond, Suffolk County, move, 10 points. Queens, almost 14 points. Westchester, 10 points. Rockland, 14 points. Orange County, 8 points. Putnam County, 6 points. Just massive, massive shifts. Niagara County, Clinton County, Franklin County. You look at all of these right here. You can go to Erie County. Trump increased his vote share here by a lot. And that's why you can see, that is why you had, and look, even nationwide, you look at it, there was the Nebraska 2nd Congressional District where it moved away from Trump. But ultimately, Republicans show they can compete in this state. And like we said, Nassau County, a key swing area for Republicans, which flipped to Trump, a first Republican presidential candidate since Reagan to win the county. And Trump's gains suggest that there is a growing openness to Republican messaging, particularly on the economy, on immigration, where you are seeing Republicans have plus 50% approval rating across the board. Now, without Trump on the ballot, it could be a different story, but ultimately, it was a closer election in 2022 when Trump wasn't on the ballot. So you could say that there may be an advantage to not having Trump on the ballot in 2026, and they could definitely maintain this momentum. Now, you jump over to the House side. You saw 2022. There were 2 states that delivered the House of Representatives to Republicans. One state was California. The other state was New York. You look at this. Republicans flipped New York's 4th, 3rd, 17th, and 19th congressional district. Ultimately, 17's has become much more conservative with Mike Lawler here, who is also considering a run for the governor's race in New York. But in the midterms, they flipped 4 House seats, including districts in Long Island and the Hudson Valley. These key wins, like we said, include New York 17, New York 4, which are both very, very competitive suburban areas. Very, very competitive. Now, obviously, New York 3, that was Santos, who now he's in jail for 7 years, I think? 7 years, yeah, George Santos, I think, is in jail for now. But fast forward to 2024, Democrats flipped 3 of these seats back, but Republicans still held their overall gains, showing that there is strength in these swing districts. You look here. Obviously, there was redistricting, so you can't really 100% judge these, but obviously, these were much larger victories than what you're seeing right here in New York's 3rd and 4th. Very, very big victories. Or I should say, they were blunted by Republican gains in these areas. And these results just highlight New York's battleground status, with suburban voters increasingly open to the Republican Party in the state. And hopefully this will carry over to 2026, especially if the Republicans field a strong gubernatorial candidate, someone like Elise Stefanik, someone like a Mike Lawler. I think those 2 would be very, very good candidates in this race. And recent polling shows that Kathy Hochul's approval rating is at record lows, with 60% of voters statewide roughly saying that it's time for someone new. And a May 2025 poll here shows Elise Stefanik within a point of Kathy Hochul. A point that is within striking distance. You're within an inch. This is within the margin of error, which granted, can it go both ways? Absolutely. But still, 60% of voters want someone different, but still, in the Democrat primary, you're seeing Kathy Hochul, which kind of embarrassing. Only in 2 polls does she have 50% approval or support. That's kind of a big deal. You're going to tell me that she's barely cracking 50%. You're an incumbent. You should be cracking 60 or 70% here. Like 51%, 52% is the highest you're going to get. Now, obviously, she will win the primary. These other 2 people who are looking to run in this race, the lieutenant governor and Representative Richie Torres, they trail so far behind her that they don't really have a shot. But Republican voters are energized by this, with potential candidates like we said, Mike Lawler, Lee Zeldin, potentially a Elise Stefanik running, and they have especially candidates with a moderate appeal, name recognition statewide, which are gaining a lot of buzz right now. And polls suggest that voters are frustrated with crime, with housing costs, with taxes, issues that Republicans have been capitalizing on. Now, New York's Democrat base has been slipping now for several reasons. Her approval rating of Hochul's has tanked since 2022 due to controversies and perceived mishandlings of issues like crime, like congestion pricing. Trump's gains in Latino communities and suburban areas show Democrats losing ground with key voting blocks. Like, if you're a Democrat and you're looking at a presidential race right here, this is unacceptable. You're telling me Queens, the Bronx, New York, Bronx, this is where AOC is from, and it shifted 21 points. 21 points to the right, the county did. That is just insane. It is insane. And leaders from unions like the New York City District Council of Carpenters, there's many union leaders that worry about Hochul's vulnerability, citing there's a serious lack of enthusiasm for her. And with high taxes, high inflation, housing crisis that are pushing moderates and independents towards Republicans, now Democrats will still benefit from New York's blue lean. That's just the nature of the state. But results from 24 and 2022 show that it is a close call and it is within striking distance, 100% within striking distance. It's like it is low approval of Democrats, economic woes, and shift in voter priorities. It really can sum everything up here. And Republicans have a real shot in 2026. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to be easy, that it's going to be a gimme. Absolutely not. They're going to have to fight hard. It's going to be a tough election, but they have a shot. Recruit a strong candidate, someone like a Mike Lawler. But then you have to think about it. You take someone like a Mike Lawler, who's from the 17th congressional district. Okay, this was a Democrat stronghold before. Remember, this whole area right here, it was kind of encompassed between 17 and 18. Okay, Sean Patrick Maloney went in by what? 12 points here. And then you have, I don't even know how to say his first name, Representative Jones winning by roughly 24 points here. So this could be a Democrat stronghold. Like, let's not kid ourselves here. Mike Lawler is a popular candidate here who barely won in 22, barely won here. But he was one of the four Republicans who flipped seats in 22 who held on in 24. But that's something you have to think about. Maybe Elise Stefanik, you see that she's already polling better here. You can see polls with her in it show that she's well positioned to win a Republican primary, would have a lot of backing of the Republican Party and Donald Trump. And in early polls, she's within striking distance, 100% within striking distance. And you're seeing Kathy Hochul in these polls, really her ceiling is, 46%? Not very high for an incumbent candidate. Not very high at all. But Republicans need to focus on suburban swing voters, maintain the momentum from 22 and 24, and avoid alienated moderates with really any extreme rhetoric. And deliver these salt deductions will be huge, something huge that Republicans will be able to run on in 26 in California, in New York. Now, we know midterms historically favor the party out of power. And with Republicans controlling the White House in 26, Democrats could see some gains in 2026. But the big question in New York will be, can Republicans unify the base while appealing to independents and disenfranchise Democrat voters? We're going to see what happens. But I think that all starts, deliver one big beautiful bill. You have to deliver there. Deliver one big beautiful bill. But that is going to wrap things up for today, folks. As always, drop down below, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. And folks, we will catch you next time.